Order for the day. First item is approval of today's agenda.
Move approval. Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens who would like to be heard this morning? Sure. You can use the microphone there.
Dwayne Hanson here. You guys have any questions as to what your job is?
No, I don't believe we do.
Well, apparently you don't know what your job is, because as a quorum, you have total control. All the officers of the county have to answer to you people. As a quorum, you have control. Do you have any problem with the American flag there? I do. That's not an American flag, that's a military flag, because it's got yellow fringes on it. I would object to you guys holding hearings under a military flag. Then on to the real primary issue. Have you guys removed Brian Milton from county attorney or Mark Epping as county sheriff? Have you guys removed them yet?
No, we have not.
Why not?
We
They're
have no-
refusing to do their job.
We have no intention of doing that, and so we have a busy agenda this morning.
That's
Mr. Hanson.
fine, you
If
can have a busy agenda.
we'll
I
give you
have a busy
we'll give
agenda
you a
too.
couple
You don't need to be
minutes
talking
state-
over me, because I can talk over you too.
We'll give you a couple minutes to state your case.
You damn
and
right.
leave.
I mean, this is a case about an estate. It happens to be my parents' estate, and we got theft going on in it, and you people refuse to do your damn job. The sheriff, the county attorney, yourselves, each and every one of you. You refuse to do your damn job. I'm getting tired of it, and I'm giving you 4 working days, and then I'm coming to remove you myself.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Okay. Approval of payment of bills and vouchers.
Move to approve.
That is a threat.
That is a threat.
I'll second the motion.
Have a motion and a second to pay the bills. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Employee recognitions. Sandra Thome. Social services, 35 years. Wow. 35 more and you'll be ready to retire.
There you go.
Thank you. That's what I said, she can't retire before me.
Yeah.
So I would like to just say a few words. Sandy is our supervisor in our child support fraud and collections unit. In her whole 35 years here, that's been her expertise and her involvement in that unit. We are so lucky, I am so lucky as a department head to have Sandy. She is known in the state and in our region for her expertise and her leadership, not only for our organization, but on state committees as well. And so we are just very thankful for Sandy. 35 years.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Jennifer Walsh, the auditor's office.
I was gonna say, I think we all appreciate your emails.
Yeah, you're our favorite person.
Sharon, 30 years of service, thank you. Appreciate that. Lori?
I think you guys already said what I was gonna say. 30 years, and Sharon's been doing payroll for most of those years. And she's the perfect person to do it because she's extremely meticulous, and she always gets our checks out on time, and we are all very appreciative of that.
Thank you. Gary Soloway. Thirty years also, motor vehicle. Thank you, Gary.
And Carrie is also an asset to Clay County, as everybody knows how crazy busy it is. We are so fortunate to have her, and her friendliness and bubbly and just hardworking ethic, and we really appreciate her.
Amy Amundson. years of service to social services. Thank you, Amy, appreciate it.
Oh, I have had the privilege to actually hire Amy 20 years ago, and she has been in child protection ever since. So that's pretty rare for someone to stick it out and stick with child protection. Amy's been one of our new supervisors over the last 3 years. She supervises in our ongoing child protection unit, the unit you hear a lot about. So she's weathered the storm up and down. One of the things I most appreciate about Amy is just her compassion for people, and her sense of humor. So she adds that to our management team and our agency, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Tracy Sunday.
All this expertise.
A lot of years of service, thank you, Tracy, 20 years of service. Appreciate it.
So Tracy has actually been with us for 21 years. She started out in our detox center. So she has some really amazing experience. She worked in our chemical dependency area after that and has been now in child protection for a number of years. Tracy manages most of our truancy caseload and our educational neglect, so she works very closely with the schools and all of our community partners. She has seen a lot of staff come and go over the years, and I really appreciate how she has mentored a lot of our new staff in child protection services, and so we couldn't have done it without her, so.
Thank you, Tracy. Not least, Ross Reno, 15 years in maintenance, and Georgia is when he's not able to be here, so. Please pass on our thanks.
I will do that. Thank you. Ross isn't able to join us today. He is our full-time custodian in the evening, and he works the 4:30 to 1 a.m. shift. He does a wonderful job. He not only does custodial work, but he will also at times play our security role at the Family Service Center, making sure the doors are locked, and trains the new employees and really does a good job for us.
Thank you. A lot of years of service to the county. We appreciate every one of those, so thank you. Okay, next item, approval of minutes from the July 16th, 2019 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve those minutes. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we have a closed session. We'll wait till we
Move to close.
I'll second.
have a motion to close in a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I'm not sure if my timing is good here after a market study discussion, but we'll see. Okay, I did bring Sandy Thorne and Larry with me today because I do have 3 new items on the budget for 2020, but I thought maybe I would go through this first summary page with you, and then after that we could talk about the 3 new items if we have time for that. Okay, so we'll just start on the first page at the top grid just to give a summary of where we're at for 2019 and what's being proposed for 2020. Now, I know my numbers don't match what Lori has because Lori included COLAs in your final numbers. Right?
I included the market study in your copy,
Okay,
yeah.
so your salary has been unmatched, so.
yeah, so mine's,
On this sheet,
Correct, yeah.
but, okay.
yeah. So my summary does not include any of that piece, so. Okay, so for 2019, the levy request, or what we did levy was that $10,305,138. We did use $100,000 of fund balance for the 2019 budget, so the total levy requested was the $10,405,138, and that's up at the top left corner there. The 2020 levy with the budget that's been submitted so far to Lori is $10,567,196, so a difference of $162,058, representing a 1.56% change from 2019 to 2020. Just over to the right there, I have listed some of the items that are most impacting that $162,000 request. So just separating out the employees and the step adjustments. We have a lot of new staff that, you know, are just kind of in their 1 year marks, so they're getting those typical step adjustments. I did increase the county funded burials $10,000, so if you go down just a little bit, the first blue area gives you some history on that. We currently have 110,000 budgeted for county funded burials, and I'm proposing 120,000. You'll see our actuals there from 2016 and 2018. I think we do need to consider a 3% adjustment for the services for our county funded burials to stay current with that. We got behind a few years ago and had to make some substantial
You're
adjustments.
talking about with the funeral homes, yeah.
Yes, yeah, so, I think we're gonna need that extra 10,000 to kind of keep us, to allow that 3%, or 2 to 3%, and keep us in line with what we're doing for county burials.
What is an average burial for
I have that, I wanna say about, let's see.
$3,000-$4,000.
Yeah, so,
Is it 3-4?
yeah.
I
We,
think the difference between county burial sometimes is we pay a certain amount for a service and cremation, and then we pay another amount for just a cremation service. And then basic items, we're paying for those at a percentage. I think what increases the rate is oversized caskets. Somebody dies that's a little bit bigger, we can't just put them in a regular casket. The funeral homes have larger caskets that they have to use for people that are.
Well, who decides whether they get a casket or is cremation?
We all have, I think that's all we ever have is cremations.
Okay, because you were talking about oversized casket.
well, we do have, in some situations, if family members, if it's against their religious belief or things like that, we are obligated to honor that, and so,
Oh, so you're also talking about, I forgot about that, family members.
Yeah.
You know who the family members are, but they just don't want to, they're just not going to pay for it.
in some cases, in some, we do have individuals where we're not able to locate any family members, and
Right,
then the
but
funeral.
those are the ones I was wondering, do they get a choice? There's no choice there, is there?
Typically not. We work with the funeral home. The statute allows us to do a cremation. To be honest with you, it's a difficult thing because if there's no family member, the funeral home looks to us to sign that cremation and those forms. And that can be, you know, a little bit challenging because in the future, if a family member surfaces and we haven't had a chance to, you know, locate them. So if we do need to do a cremation, we really make some diligent efforts to make sure that we've tried really hard to locate a family. And the funeral home does a notification and there's a process for that.
Does that price include a plot?
Yes. So I can pass this around. This is what our 2019 rates are. And then at the bottom, these rates are from 2018, but it gives a little bit of a summary of what some of those breakout costs are, just for information. For 2018, we did 51 county burials, and the average cost for those funerals, just dividing it by the cost, was $2,200. And we do collect some revenue on those county burials. If there's some assets or available resources, that we do collect that as well to help offset.
Yeah.
So,
Thank
there was
you.
recently an article in the Minnesota Post about the impact of county burials on Minnesota counties, which I thought was kind of interesting if anyone wants to. It hits the nail on the head, that exactly what we're experiencing as well. So, okay, so that was a $10,000 increase. Contracted providers is in that second blue grid. Now, just to be clear, this is not all of our contracts. These are just some of the contracts that are impacting the levy increase request. So you'll see the history there, and then you'll see the 2020 proposed, and then the percent change from 2019 to 2020. You'll notice Lakeland is a 3%, the others are 2%, except for Lutheran Social Services, our guardianship program. That program, and Anthony can attest to that as well, this is for individuals who need a guardian, who do not have any other family or relatives to serve as that guardian, and they are vulnerable, a vulnerable population. So those get referred to us, or sometimes we are referring them into the guardianship program or through a court situation. And the county has a statute responsibility to assure those services are available. We have been working with LSS for all of our referrals. And when we look at the number of referrals that we're sending and the hours of service they're providing, we're behind. So I was trying to catch up. Last year, you gave a 7% increase to that contract, and I was asking for that again this year, and then we'll level off a little bit, I think. But so in summary, that 30,000 in those contracts represents an impact on the levy.
Rhonda, may I just supplement that a little? Well, I think one of the important things too to point out with that is that guardianship is almost a cost protective measure, because a lot of the people who are subject of guardianship have been civilly committed as mentally ill to state hospitals, to local hospitals. It's basically to try and keep them, someone to keep an eye on them, make sure they're taking their meds, going to the doctor, staying off controlled substances. It's kind of a prophylactic measure to prevent further costs down the road if they do that. So I think it's really important. It's a lesser restrictive alternative than a civil commitment or something like that. So it's something that hopefully, if everything works out, it pays for itself.
Okay, the next item is detox. We have a little over $17,000 increase in that budget. So again, if you look at the third blue area there, it gives you a little bit of history. 2016 actual, 2017 actual, 2018 actual, what we budgeted for 2019 and what's proposed for 2020. So that added to the levy impact as well. The next one is county attorneys for social services. So that was a close to a $50,000 increase in the budget. The work that the county attorney's office does for us gets billed back to our department in 3 areas. This is just one of those areas. It gets billed back for Larry's unit and Sandy's unit in a separate way, and this is for the social service area. So handling all of our guardianships, our civil commitments, our CHIPS cases, and it's a formula, and Lori tells me the number and we put it in. So that's increased there. We do have a slight reduction in some earned revenue in our child support area. That's the $11,500 there. That's in Sandy's area, and it's a federal reduction in revenues we earn. The problem is it's not that we're doing worse, it's just that other states are doing better, so therefore the money is distributed in a little different way, and so we're getting less. Anything to add, Sandy?
That's pretty much it.
Okay, I want to make sure I got that right. And then the larger one there's that's titled VCAA, that stands for Vulnerable Children and Adults Act, that $89,000. This is a allocation we get. We get over $1 million. We've been getting it for a number of years, and that allocation is a formula, and it gets adjusted, and that formula negatively impacted us. Actually, it negatively impacted us this year as well as 2020. It stayed the same from 2018. We had a higher amount. So that just had to be realized in the budget. Generally, if we have our revenues, if you look at our revenues, some go up, some go down, they can tend to balance each other out. But this one actually did not get realized in the 2019 budget, so we're gonna have a bit of a deficit in 2019, but it got corrected now for 2020, and that's that reflection there.
So the revenues, or basically reduced.
Yes.
But the mandate is still there.
Yeah, it's revenue that we get to help us in child protection and adult protection. Yeah, it's just.
Yeah, the costs are
Only
still
those
there.
formulas, yeah. And then that last item there is jail mental health. So that's actually 135,467. That's a savings in the budget because we shifted that from the social service budget to Julie's budget in the jail. The reason it's not the full amount is because we had some revenues to help offset those expenses. If you remember, we had the $75,000 from Lakeland and some from VECO. So that was kind of a credit to the budget.
So that brings me to the question, I thought there was gonna be some savings in the non-secure juvenile detention area too, with social services. With that whole independent living area, I thought there was gonna be some, housing them here rather than sending them to.
Yeah, so we'll get down to placements.
Oh, okay,
So
okay,
this one
okay.
is just related to jail,
Yeah,
not
okay.
out-of-home placements.
Okay, great.
So there is some good news in the placement area, and this is an area that I think as a board, you may decide to budget this differently than what I have. But if you go down to the longest line there on the sheet, it says placement history. So if you just focus on the yellow line there, and go all the way to the right, you'll see that for 2020, I budgeted 2.5 million, which is the levy impact for out-of-home placements. But if you back it up a bit and look at where we're sitting or what we're projecting to spend for 2019, it's 1.8 or say 1.9. So there's a $600,000 difference there, you might say. So here's,
There is.
yeah. So here's some things. It makes me a bit nervous. I think both Susan and Susan from the auditor's office need to look at a couple things. In our revenues, if you look under the 2019 projected, you'll notice she's projecting 35% revenues to our expenditures. I think that's a bit high. I think we have to look at that. I'm not sure that we're going to end up at 35%. So that's a piece we have to look at. If you look at our actuals, 2018 in the yellow there, we spent almost 2.3 million. In 2017, almost 2.4. And then in 2016, 2.8. So I want to make sure we don't just look back 1 year. We have to kind of give ourselves some years to look at. That's the other thing. The other piece we have to recognize is I did not account for rate increases. All of the out-of-home placement rates will, you can expect at least 2% in foster base rates and that kind of stuff. So this allows us to manage that. And the last blue box on this page, James is recommending with the new building and the new programming. He provided me with the rates that he's looking at for 2020, and it's a 20% increase in the daily rates. So what I did was I just applied 2019. We looked at, for the first 6 months, what we've been spending at West Central in the 2 programs. And we applied a 20% to that if everything stayed the same, what would we be paying next year? And it's about $140,000 difference. So we have to make sure we consider that as well, if those rates change that substantially for 2020.
And Mr. Chair,
That makes
Commissioners, James will be here in a couple of weeks to explain the budget. And I think when we look at a 20% increase, there'll be an explanation that'll be coming. Because of the increased number of beds, the county has provided a interfund transfer every year since non-secure has existed, and he is suggesting that everybody pay an additional higher rate, because ultimately what's happening is Clay County is funding the facility, and some of our non-member counties are able to are getting a subsidized rate based on that interfund transfer dollars. And so what James will be projecting in his budget would be to removing that dollar amount of the interfund transfer. Rhonda's budget then goes up, but there'll be a net savings to the county overall because the other member counties won't be subsidized any longer.
So, and maybe, I can come back and we can kind of, I think this is gonna require some more discussion and, review our placement numbers. The kids that we have in care, we're still seeing a lot of kids. I think we're gonna try to pull out the data. I think what's happening is we have a lot of kids going into care. We are able to get some of them home a little bit faster. I was thinking part of the difference might be that we have more kids in foster care versus our higher cost residentials, but the data is not necessarily showing that. So we have to kind of look a little bit deeper at the trend. I just want to be careful to look back a reasonable time period to make sure we don't cut it too short, because as you know, these placements can go so crazy year to year.
Mr. I don't think we need to get into to the weeds on that today, but I would like to spend some more time between what you're doing and what James is doing, because I remember this whole topic about when we talked about having that transitional piece to our non-secure area, that would save some potential windshield time and all that kind of stuff. And I remember that whole dialogue, and I just want to see how that's all working out compared to what we projected.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to do that.
And Rhonda, we do have an out-of-home placement committee, and I think
We
that
do.
would probably be beneficial to kick it back to that committee, because James is on that committee.
Sure.
We can kind of discuss where, there may be some tweaking here or there.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We haven't met now for a while with the project going on, but I'll connect with James and get that committee back together. Yeah, and the savings was a part of it. The other piece that was perhaps even more a part of it was the fact that we would be shifting money we're spending out of the county to in the county.
That's right, and that's where that's what I'm talking about. I want to
Yeah.
see how that all is worked out.
Okay. So some good news in that regard. I just think it needs a little bit more review. So that's kind of just the summary of the overall budget. The next items in the packet are the new requests. I did have 3 new requests. The first one being in our income maintenance unit in Larry's unit, and I'll let him talk a bit about that request. I'll just turn it over to you.
This is under long-term care classification. It's anyone over 65 that's at-home getting services, or nursing homes, or waivered services. I've sent out an email across the state over the last couple months asking what a long-term care caseload looks like for other counties. 250 to 300 cases is what came back as pretty much the consistent number. We have 2 workers, one that's been there 40 years and another one that's been there 17 years. So they've got a lot of experience in these programs, but their caseloads are 460 to 450 cases each. So the hope was to be able to spread that out a little bit, to be a more manageable number, and then with potential that both of them might retire sometime down the line. Is the intricacies of the programs. And like I said, it deals with nursing homes, it deals with county burials, it deals with all the services that we provide are eligible for that are in-home, waivered services. They're a great resource to our community too. I think there's not too many funeral homes or nursing homes that don't know all they need to do is call our workers with their experience to be able to ask questions. We're again getting this extra person on board to help understand the programming and get that knowledge from Kim and Janet before they both retire. I think would be very, very beneficial, because I think, again, the community is going to expect still us to be able to give those answers to them on a quick basis, which Jen and Kim can do right now, but it might be a little difficult once they're both gone.
Yeah, we have been very, very fortunate to have the staff in those programs that we do. Janet there for 40 years, and as you would expect, their efficiency and ability to manage the volume even is challenged right now for them because that caseload continues to grow, but they just know what they're doing. The one employee who's been with us for 17 years does have retirement on the radar for April. Janet, not that long, year or so after that. We've talked about the fact that with that caseload, we really need to be looking at 4 people instead of 2. But what we're proposing for 2020 is to bring on that 3rd person sooner rather than later. In fact, what I have in here is outlined if you were so to approve that we would bring that person on even in September of this year at about a $9,000 cost so that she can, because we're gonna have movement. They can get through the training, it requires DHS training. She can start working, splitting out that caseload, and then when Kim retires in April, replace her. So we essentially have 3 people, and then when Janet retires, deal with that. But we just have to do succession planning in this area, and it's a complicated program, and the reliance on it is quite high. The fortunate thing about this in Larry's unit is it is a position that does get that 50% federal reimbursement. So half of the costs are reimbursed. So it's a little bit lighter in terms of the levy impact. So I did lay that out there in terms of if the board were to approve bringing this position on as early as September, what that cost would be, and then what the cost would be then for the full year next year, assuming Kim's retirement in April and then replacing that. And
Do you have room within your 2019 budget for the hire happening in September of this year?
yes, because we've had turnover, so we have that.
Enough to cover the
Yes.
50% or
Yeah.
whatever?
Yeah, so that is that position. I don't know if there's any questions. I don't know that you'd be making a decision on this today unless you so desire. We can move on. Okay, the second position that's in the 2020 budget is in Sandy's unit, and I'll let Sandy talk about that one.
Okay. So back in 2010, the county was in a hiring freeze when I lost one of my child support officers. And at that time, we'd had 7, and we had 3 of them focusing on establishing orders. When this person left, we had to just absorb that extra work in, and we've been trying to make it work for years now, but we are now in our 3rd year of performance improvement plan for current collections, and going to a training on trying to improve in those areas. They said one of the most effective ways to improve there is to get orders established. And so I'm looking at hopefully being able to replace that position, but I would replace it with a support enforcement aide rather than a child support officer. So it's a little lower on the pay scale to make it a little more affordable. But then I would have that person working directly with the child support officers on like gathering the information and, you know, doing more of the behind the scenes, getting prepared to establish orders so that the child support officers can just focus on getting those orders out so that hopefully we can improve in the current collection area and get off of the performance improvement plan. We're dealing with change still. My area's always changing. Income shares went into effect in January of 2007. So that was gathering more information from each party. Now we have the parenting expense adjustment, and that went into effect in August of last year. And this has really become a challenge for the child support officers, because you have to interpret what the parenting time plan is in the order, and then calculate overnights for each parent to determine what's gonna happen in the child support calculation. And it's very open for interpretation. It's taking a lot more time than I think we expected. We've lost a lot of experience, and so I still have newer staff trying to learn things, and we're just getting a little bit behind. We're being able to get a support aide in there to help with some of the tasks that are kind of bogging us down would be very much appreciated in our unit.
Okay.
This position as well, fortunately, does have federal financial participation as well at 66%. So the county share to those positions is the 44%. So I did calculate what that would be in terms of the county cost, a little over $27,000 for a full-time support enforcement aide for Sandy's unit starting in 2020, January 2020. So, all right. Should I go on to the third new item? Okay, the third new item is some office space. So the first grid there, that's all green. This is 5th floor, so this is where a lot of the social service staff are. We are plumb full. We have probably taken about 12 or more closet type spaces and made them into offices, and we're just it's not conducive to what we need to do. The second page is the layout of 4th floor. The green area we have as well at social services, that's where all the licensors are. The purple area is the area that I would like to occupy in 2020. That is currently the space Lutheran Social Services is occupying, and my understanding is that they were needing more space as well, and so they have located a space outside of our building in Moorhead, and we're going to be moving out.
Did we know that?
We did.
I knew it was in discussion, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like just recently, they officially gave notice.
Okay.
So that space currently is leasing at a little over 52,000, so 52,602 for that section. So I did include that as a new request, assuming that amount would stay the same. A new request in the social service budget. This would allow us, it's got about 17 or 18 office spaces, depending on which ones you use as offices, that will allow us to reconfigure a bit of what's on 4th floor and move some people down to, or on 5th floor and move some people down to 4th floor.
Is it the same rate for you versus them?
I believe so, yes. Just to follow up to that question. So, in the Family Service Center budget, did that revenue item stay there?
Yeah.
The 52 stayed there?
I believe it did, yes.
So if we didn't do this, we would have to adjust the revenue line item,
Correct.
or, or assume that we're gonna have it filled by somebody else,
Right.
which isn't a guarantee.
Right.
Okay, I just want to know, how to make sure that was in there.
And a follow-up, did we include this with Glenn McCarthy? Do they know the change?
They were, yeah, we discussed it yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one thing I didn't include in the new request is any office setup. These offices, the furniture that's in them, I'm assuming LSS would take with them. It's not furnishings connected to the walls or anything. So we would need to set those offices up, but my suggestion is that because it would be a one-time cost, that perhaps we could utilize fund balance to just set those offices up. And I haven't had anybody out yet in terms of looking at them to give me a cost, but I'm
Do they have an
suspecting.
internal service fund?
They don't, no.
Not at all.
They contribute just for their computers, they contribute a certain amount.
Yes, no.
Yep.
So computers and everything, our staff will just move and phone, so there won't be any additional cost there, but it would be the workstations, that would be the additional cost. So,
Will this give you enough space to add your storage closets back in?
yes, it will allow us to create some additional meeting room spaces, allow us to have people in safer environments. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done on fifth floor in terms of our visits, our supervised visits. That's a little cumbersome, so if the board were to approve this space, we will do some more thorough assessment of, okay, what makes sense, how do we best address the visitation issue and some of the workspace issues and meeting room issues too. Yeah. So those are the 3 new requests that are currently in the budget.
Okay, thank you. Anything else for these fine people? Okay, thanks. Rhonda, you've got one more thing on the budget, or in the agenda here, it looks like.
Oh, yes, I do. If I could just ask, in terms of Larry's position, I do have a request in there that if approved, it could start in September. Is that something you'd like to give more thought to and give an answer later, or should I come back to the board to discuss that?
Is this item number 4?
No, that's a new one. I had a resignation that I'll be talking
Oh,
about.
okay.
Does the board want to take action on that today?
I think it should be an agenda item.
Okay. I do,
Because we're spending money, so it should be an agenda.
Put it on next week.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I do understand with approving it, you're making a decision into 2020, so I do
Right.
understand that as well. So, okay, we'll schedule that for a separate discussion then.
Okay, and then you've got a vacancy for
Yes,
Central. and then-
we had a resignation in our disability service area. We are requesting to replace this worker. This caseload that this employee is managing actually brings in enough revenue to even cover the costs and more of the position, which is typical with some of these waiver case management positions. So this staff serves over 69 individuals, and we just absolutely would need this position to be filled. We don't have the capacity to distribute the caseload. And then I'd be asking for approval to backfill any staff that might want to move around, so.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the request. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kurt, come on up. We're getting behind schedule here, so we'll...
I'll get into some trash talk here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The solid waste budget is different than other budgets that are before you. We have an enterprise fund, and what the enterprise fund means is we're a standalone budget. Our budget is not included in the levy as all. It's primarily funded by tipping fees, service fees. We get a small grant from the state for recycling, about $180,000. We get some money from Paint Care for handling some of the paint, and that's basically it. So the budget that you have before you is it's basically a recycled budget. It's essentially the same budget that we had last year with the addition of 2 things. The first one is we put in $480,000 into our internal service fund. That's up from $100,000 from last year. And the reason why is it's more realistic number. Previously, we didn't have a very realistic number in there, but now we do. So that's one change. The other change that we have in there, or the other addition that we have in there, is for the landfill expansion, and that's for $2.5 million. It's a one-time expense, and with that landfill expansion, we should be good at the landfill for another 8 to 10 years. So that's the other addition. One thing I should point out, the solid waste group, unlike other departments, we contribute $120,000 on an annual basis to the general fund. I just want to point that out because we're pretty proud of that, and we feel pretty good about that.
You feel good enough to contribute more?
We certainly could. We could talk about that as we're talking about service fees and tipping fees, so.
Okay.
That's really up to you, whatever you would like to do. So with that, if there's any questions you might have, it's pretty self-explanatory. You know, we're pretty pleased with what we've accomplished here as far as the solid waste department. We've come a long ways. We still have quite a ways to go. And I'm going to pass this around very quickly because anytime we get a chance to talk to you guys, I'd like to talk to you guys. These are the goals for the 2020 solid waste department. Number one goal basically is get legislative funding finally for our transfer station problem material facility. As you remember, it's been quite a journey. We've been at it for about 5 years. I just found out that we're going to be giving a presentation again. It's going to be the same presentation except the cost is going to go up. But we're going to be giving a presentation in the House Investment Committee in September. And so we'll give them an opportunity to hear our project again. So that's the number one priority. As far as the second priority, we're going to try and complete the grant application for the transfer station. That's a very cumbersome task from the state. We have to go through that with the Pollution Control Agency. We have done that previously with the $600,000 that we received initially, so it's something we've done before, and we're pretty familiar with the people that are operating it. The third item is, as we talked about, we're going to complete the landfill cell expansion and gas enhancement facility. We've talked about that before the board previously. As I mentioned earlier, with that change out at the landfill, we hope to have 8 to 10 years of additional capacity. Although it's really been strange, we've been getting just an inordinate amount of contaminated soil out there from petroleum sites. It seems like there's a lot of development going on, and we've been getting an awful lot of material. So, and it seems like there's people that want to use up our capacity on a regular basis. So, but we're shooting for 8 to 10 years. The fourth item is finalize the landfill organizational structure. As many of you know, Larry Henry retired, and we're going to be doing some different things with the position out there. We've talked to Darren about that, and we're making some pretty good progress on that. We're going to continue to upgrade landfill capital equipment. One of the things I'd be coming to talk to you about here in the near future is another pickup. We just got one pickup, but we need another pickup. The newest pickup that we have out there is a 1992 before this other one. Actually, that pickup is older than the one that Commissioner Campbell just got rid of his, and it's even older than that, so I think we need a new one.
Does yours have as many miles as mine?
Oh, yeah. These are road miles, too. These are hard miles.
Yeah,
so.
mine were too.
The next time we'd like to try and do is increase the visibility of Plastic Bag Task Force. As many of you know, plastic bags are a complete pain in my keister, as they say. You know, not only a problem for our landfill, but they're a problem for our neighbors as well. We've been trying very, very hard to raise the awareness in the community, and I think we've done a fairly good job on that, but we want to do even more. This last year we had a master recycling class, and essentially what happened, people in the community came in and they learned about garbage, they learned about trash. We had 8 people that actually came in and took part in that. We'd like to try and do it again this year and try and increase the number of people we have. We'd like to expand the township recycling drop-off sites. We have several. They've been very, very successful. One of the things I was really concerned about when we did this initially was keeping these things clean. But they've been very, very clean. The material we've been getting has been very good material, and it's been very well received. So hopefully we can get some more townships out there to be involved with that. Yes, ma'am.
They are being very well utilized, so I appreciate seeing that. Has there been discussion at either the township level or your level about adding fencing around any of them? Has that been a problem?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, I think that we have had one issue where the fencing was an issue, and there has been a discussion. We have left it up to the townships to do what they see as fit. And, you know, that way they can really take ownership of it. And I know in one township in particular, there has been some discussion about putting a shed up, and I think that would be a prudent thing to do. The next item that we're trying to do a little bit more of is work with the Department of Ag to expand our pesticide collection. We're going to be having our pesticide collection here in the next couple of weeks. It's just been overwhelmingly successful here. Last year was just incredible how many containers we got. I've already got a phone call from a dealer who has been collecting, and he says he has a semi-truck full that he wants to bring out. So again, it's been really a positive thing for the community.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
Because the University of Minnesota Extension does their pesticide applicator training, have you done any collaboration with them during that to give a heads up as to that that's on the radar, that we're doing this even?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, it's my understanding that we have talked to ACES, is that right? I don't know if we've talked to that group, but we've talked to a group.
Oh, the Farm Service Agency?
Yeah, I think that's.
FSA office?
Yeah, that's the one. We have talked to them, and
Okay.
apparently they have a list of farmers that are interested, so
All right. Okay.
hopefully we've got
I
that
might
covered.
just drop that bug in, because I know that, Extension does that in the spring, that pesticide piece.
What do you do with the barrels and stuff like that? That are
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, what happens is that we have a company from I think it's down in Iowa, that comes up and they take the material, no cost to us at all.
Okay.
So it's a really a positive program all the way around. Keeps it out of the landfill, and the farmers don't burn it.
Right.
So it's a really good positive program. The next item, I'll be coming, I think in the next couple of months to review the tipping fees and the service fees. I think probably the tipping fees will be the first thing that I'll come and talk to you all about. We'll have to, we've been working really, really hard at it. Commissioner Grant, Wayland, and Commissioner Kelly Campbell, and our consultant, myself, and SWAC, Solid Waste Advisory Committee, have all been working very, very hard at this. It's real important for me. I'm not going to be here forever. I want to make sure that the program is going to be sustainable once I leave, and I think that we're taking some positive steps on that. The final thing that we're going to be doing is monitor PFAS and chronic wasting disease. PFAS, basically, you've been hearing a lot about those as far as in the press. Essentially what that is that it's everywhere. PFAS are everywhere. It's part of the 3M settlement that they had with the state. It was an $800 million settlement. There's all kinds of programs that are being looked at nationally. EPA is looking at it. It's a real problem. There have been no health standards set as of yet, but treating this material or getting rid of it in a responsible manner is extremely difficult. So it's going to be expensive, whatever we have to do.
Would you explain what the acronym stands for?
I knew you were going to ask me that, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner. It's a, and I really can't give you the acronym, but it's like in Teflon and firefighting repellent equipment and things like that. It's virtually everywhere.
Chemical pollutant.
Yeah, it's a 3M product, Teflon. It's in all those kinds of materials. It's Scotchgard. I mean, it's everywhere, and it's a real problem as far as trying to figure out how to manage it. And then the chronic wasting disease. That's the for deer. Prions, I think they're called.
Yep.
It's another one of those organisms that's basically pretty difficult to try and manage. And a lot of landfills, including ourselves, will not take deer carcasses that have chronic wasting disease, but then trying to figure out what to do with them is the issue. So with that, I stand to answer any questions you may all have.
Looks like you got a lot on your plate, so.
We all do.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's, Mr. Chairman, I think that's really critical. I mean, you know, we can't do anything without you guys' input. And I mean, I think you guys have been very, very well engaged. I really appreciate your help, your guidance, and your input. So thank you much.
Thanks, Kirk.
Thank you.
Janelle, why don't you come on up?
We're going to keep going, we're not going to have a break, right?
Yeah, let's keep going.
Keep rolling.
Yeah.
We're running out of time. Yeah.
Hello.
Good morning.
Well, the probation department remains pretty much status quo. We continue to have 3 county staff, Karen Jenkins, 20 years, Annette Montplaisir, 19 years, and then we have an open position currently. That position, the posting closed yesterday, so hopefully we can backfill that with a full-time position soon. As far as agent staff, we have 2 adult agents, Rick Young, Shelley Ford, and then we have 3 juvenile agent positions that are filled with Lindsay Chernus, Robert Fury, and then we have that open position as well. We had an agent in that position, but that was Eric Ness, and he transitioned to the drug court agent position. That position actually was just recently accepted by Matthew Verdos. He's a senior agent, so it was a career agent in that position. It will be backfilled with a senior agent, and so that will be a cost savings to the county as well. Our budget pretty much remains the same. There is about a $40,000 increase to the budget, and that pertains specifically to salaries and fringe benefits. The rest of the budget remains the same. There is a $120,000 revenue, that's state reimbursement for the agent positions. Changes for 2020, probation department is going to look to implement or facilitate the MAD Victim Impact Panel, and that organization will do a contracted service payment back, and I hope to use those funds for drug screening, supplies. We're also going to look to do or implement a pretrial supervision process. So our need to do more drug screens will increase, so those costs will also increase. So I think that will hopefully balance that in that area. One of the other changes for 2020, I am looking to change the vendor for the drug screens to coincide with what the Minnesota Department of Corrections utilizes. So we will move to a Premier Biotech, and that way we can share supplies. They also provide training, ongoing training, and they also, if we needed them to testify, they would come testify. And that basically covers our department. There is one other thing, I guess. I believe that our probation department has not added staff in over 20 years. I know that we are on the verge of the state looking to reimburse due to the ratio of staff-client. And so I'm looking at that likely to occur in 2021. Last year, the state changed supervision contacts to kind of offset that and not have to hire additional new staff, so we just kind of changed what we do. But last time I looked, Clay County was nearing where the state would reimburse an added position within the county.
Thank you, Janelle. Any questions for Janelle?
Thank you.
Thanks, Janelle. Sheriff Empine. You had a deputy spot open, huh?
Yes. Morning, thanks for having me this morning. Here today to request to fill a vacant deputy position. We had a deputy that resigned, will be leaving the 18th of August. And we'd like to replace that position. We anticipate to have a savings of roughly $5,900 between the salaries of where that deputy is at now and hiring new staff at step one.
Any questions for the sheriff?
Motion to approve the request?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the request. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Thank you.
There you go, Sheriff, thank you.
Nice article in FMX on you.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Very well put.
Appreciate that. She did a very nice job with
Are
it.
you in the
Also, thank you
burger
for-
cook-off?
What's that?
Burger cook-off today, are you
Yeah,
part of that?
yeah, we're going to that next.
Also, thank you for your article in the record review on the
yes.
jail. That was
Yeah, that was a very good article as well. They both did a very good job on those. We're very happy. It's good positive thing for Clay County, so,
Well, you gave good answers and stuff like that. It was very good.
thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff, good
Thank
work.
you.
Thank you.
West Central Initiative Annual Report and Financial Request. Rebecca
And Jill,
and Joe.
and Samantha, who brought the whole team.
Good, good. Good morning, ladies.
Thank you. Good morning. I want to introduce Samantha Van Wetchel-Meyer, who's passing out your booklets. She's new to our staff. She may be making a presentation next year.
I'm Jill Amundson. I'm an associate planner at West Central Initiative, and I'm here to give you your annual economic overview, which in your folders looks like this very colorful document. And I heard rumor that you might have skipped a break, so I'm going to make it really quick because I know you can read this. Clay County's growth has been positive. The demographer estimates we've added about 283 people over the last year. I should say net gain. And the new estimates for 2018 have just come out for comment. So if you happen to take a look at the demographer's website, you can weigh in on that. In the center of your document there's the industries in the most need. Just to point out that they are listed top to bottom with number of openings. And that vacancy rate, if you look at the healthcare and social assistance, vacancy rate is 5.9%, and then 49% of the 5.9% are part-time openings. Your cost of living is stayed about the same, averaged about $2 lower than last year, but the average wage has increased $26. And poverty at the bottom there has held steady over the last 3 years at just under 12%. So overall, I would say positive outlook.
Good look, yeah.
Any questions on any of that?
No, I just want an overall question. A couple of weeks ago, we had Joe Rosso in here from Economic,
Greater Fargo Moorhead.
Greater Fargo Moorhead. And I asked him what kind of contact he has with you. And do you have any contact with the Greater Fargo Moorhead Development? I mean, you both work in the same area. So is there any coordination between?
I'm a relatively new staff, so I don't know of anything. Rebecca, maybe you know.
I can just mention, yesterday I was at the Moorhead EDA meeting, and so we're doing a lot of work right now with Moorhead. We're working with Dan Malley and Derek Laporte. So our loan officer, Greg Wagner, who's also in the planning department with Jill, is doing a lot of work with them right now on the facade project, some business retention projects. So I think with Dan and Derek on board and Greg partnering with them, we're going to see a lot more collaboration and activity that way.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to see that we got some coordination.
Yes, and actually, I think you raise a really great point, Commissioner Gross, because we'd like to be seeing more of that happening in the Fargo-Moorhead area and also throughout Clay County. But yeah, so you raise a really good point and question, and we're working on that.
Good, thank you.
I agree. I think the more collaboration you can have with the Barnesville EDA and
Yes.
Holly, and I think greater Clay County as well as Moorhead specifically, the more you'll play off of each other.
Absolutely.
And from our perspective, to put money towards one and another, we really appreciate seeing that they're working together.
Right, and we do house the Moorhead Economic Development Loan Fund. And so when we met with the EDA or EDD board, all these acronyms, same thing. We were talking about that yesterday and how they'd like that loan fund to be more active. And oftentimes West Central Initiative, we're kind of a bridge loan program, so we'll come in and do some gap loan. That kind of collaboration is something we really want to do more of because it just leverages more dollars. So In fact, can I just segue into my comments?
Yeah, I think going back to Commissioner Gross's question too, the agency that you probably haven't worked with is the Greater Fargo-Moorhead Economic Development Association.
Yeah, so that's.
And Joe is the executive director of that board now, and I think we, like Frank said, about 2 weeks ago, we asked Joe to reach out to you folks to see too, and they have a little bit different task. They're the ones who are kind of out to bring in new high-paying. They're kind of focused in a certain area.
Sure.
But the idea of having another tool in the toolbox, so to speak, when they talk to people who might be interested in coming to Clay County,
right.
I think, as was talked about, to be able to, everybody circle the wagons and come up with how we can keep these businesses coming here.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah, because when I attend meetings there, Moorhead's not mentioned that much, and it's a big area of Clay County. I mean, Moorhead really drives Clay County here.
So I was going to start my comments by asking you a similar question. We would like to do even more in Clay County, and what does that mean? Where do you see the greatest need? And you mentioned, because Clay County, a lot of your population is right here in the Fargo-Moorhead area, but we do a lot of work in Barnesville and Holly and Hitterdall. So where's the greatest need? Is it workforce? Is it childcare? Is it housing? Is it something else that we're not aware of? And then we're working on revisiting our grants programs. And so what would have the greatest impact for Clay County? Would it be in Moorhead? Would it be in the smaller communities or Barnesville? Or is it agri-based? I mean, you have a lot of agri-based economy in Clay County as well. So be thinking about that, because I just have a few more comments I want to make before I roll out our new strategic plan and.
Well, clearly workforce is it's a big issue everywhere right now, and
right. So one of the things we're working on as we address workforce shortages, our Live Wide Open program, it came out of a workforce development initiative, recognizing that we do have a decreasing population in much of our region. And so we've been out there telling stories why people should move here, why there are jobs. We've featured 3 or 4 individuals in the Fargo-Moorhead area, but we'd like to do more of those stories. We've also done some work in Barnesville and featuring kind of their alumni pool, move back to the area, you've moved away, come back, there's a great place to live here. We know that for some of these folks, housing is an issue, so we know that that's something we have to address. And the other big elephant in the room is the whole childcare issue, that there's such a shortage of space for childcare. So we see childcare centers burgeoning up in these communities. Right. So as you talk about, pooling our resources, how can we address some of these issues together? So that's one of the ways we're doing it, through the Live Wide Open program. And so if you have stories that we can be telling to encourage people to move to Clay County, please share those with us. I just wanted to mention, I ran a report, well actually Samantha ran the report for me before I came here. In the past 3 years, in Clay County, loans and grants combined have totaled over $1 million. And so over half of that has been in outright grant programs, either our Changemaker grants or our Child Care Initiative grants. So we kind of have this silent impact on the region, which I think we need to be telling the story more verbally about that. We also, as Commissioner Gross knows, we have a new strategic plan. And I think you were at the EDD meeting a couple of weeks ago where we went through this. So at the core of our plan, and it's on the left-hand side, it's this gear-looking graphic that you see: invest in local, reimagine regional, educate, activate, and celebrate. So that's at the core. But then we're not just a philanthropic organization, we're a planning organization, and that's Jill's work. So we've got the Develop MN cornerstones here of community resources, human capital, foundational assets, and economic competitiveness. And then that gear turns the bigger gear, which we know that our work locally and regionally has a global impact. We know that we're doing soybean research that's having an impact in Japan and other countries, but we also know that the world has an impact on us. So if you look at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals adopted by the United Nations, when we had the whole EDD and WCI board together, we looked at these, and there were about 15 or 20 sticky notes on every single one. We're already working on things like zero hunger, no poverty, clean water, quality education. These are all important things to us. So that's our new strategic plan. It's like a 3-year launch, and we'll see where it goes from there. Anything you want to add about that from the meeting we had a few weeks ago? Yeah, okay. And then finally, you'll notice in your packet, I did, in addition to thanking you for your past support for over 20 years, I just recognize, looking at all of our city and counties, we've never asked for an increase in funding. So I'm testing the waters this year and just asking for you to consider a slight increase, just reminding us all that every dollar that's invested in West Central Initiative stays in the region, and it leverages other support to bring new dollars to the region. So to your point, I think we need to get this gear turning and connect all the dots in our region so that we're even collaborating more.
Well, probably I'm just not aware of what's happening up here in Clay County, how many people are involved in it and stuff like that, you know, but yeah, okay, we'll go keep on giving money to this and increase it, you know, but what's our result? I mean, have you got something to say that here at Clay County, we got so much money, we got so many loans out to Clay County people?
She just said $1 million in loans.
In the last 3 years, loans and grants.
Okay.
So on your...
Sometimes we don't hear about that. I mean,
right.
Yes, you can tell me $1 million, you can tell me $2 million.
Sure.
I don't know where it's at though, or something like that.
Sure. So in fact, like with the Early Childhood Initiative, we have probably over $100,000 in grants that come back over here to Clay County. We have a really active dental health network, so we are providing dental care to kids who can't afford it. We also have a mental health initiative that's happening in every one of our 9 counties and on White Earth. And then through the Early Childhood Initiative, we do a lot of lobbying at the state level to bring more dollars in. Right now, Nancy Jost, who's our Early Childhood Initiative coordinator, tells me that we just did a grant to the Somali Child Care Project because we were able to bring in money from Blue Cross Blue Shield to help with that effort. So we're out there lobbying, and if there are things that we should be lobbying for on behalf of Clay County and the rest of our region at the state capitol, we want to hear about those too.
And I will also want to add that we funded with one of our grants, the community planning grant, the business retention and expansion project that's been in Moorhead recently. I believe that was $7,500.
Yeah. So we can send you more detailed information.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate seeing that the Barnesville Area Community Fund, the Clay County Loan Fund, the Holly Area Component Fund, the Hitterdall Alliance Fund, and the Moorhead Economic Development Loan Fund. I appreciate the fact that it's geographically spread out throughout the county. And the importance of that is great.
And as I mentioned, our work with the Moorhead Economic Development folks is getting more and more active. But that Barnesville community is super active. So their community fund and their advisory group, they meet monthly. They've got a lot of projects going on, and they're working to bring new business and new people to their community as well.
And I think to go back to your question about what we see as a need, and obviously the workforce is important and growth is important, but if you're trying to retain a vibrant workforce to help sustain what may be called as a silver tsunami going forward, is the childcare piece is huge. And for people to have to get on wait lists 9 to 10 months before they are even pregnant, that is a huge problem to recruit people that already have children. And many people are spending more than their mortgage on their childcare bills. And so, I think that is an area where Clay County is lacking in child care facilities specifically.
Yeah, we're seeing that all over our region, in small communities and large, so. Any other questions? Sorry to go on and on, but it's something that we're really passionate about.
Well, no, a lot of times we talk about what do we need in the county and stuff like that. Is it workforce, is it housing?
Yeah.
And I look at housing, you know, I think we got plenty of housing, I think we just have the wrong people in the houses. You know, and I'm saying that because I look at my neighborhood, out of 8 houses in our block, 4 have 3-4 bedroom homes with a widow or widower in it.
Yeah.
You know, that's a lot of housing there that's taken up by 4 people, you know. So we should have housing, I think, you know, not for families and stuff like that. I think we should have housing for our senior citizens.
I think that's a good point, and I don't know if you've heard Ben Winchester's presentation.
Yes, I have.
And he
Very
says
good.
that's exactly what's happening. We have so many houses that are gonna turn over, but right now they're not. And so how do we prepare for that? How do we provide housing for, 1 or 2 people when we need housing for families?
Well, in Moorhead specifically, I think you've got 9 to 10% vacancy rate in apartments. And so I think part of the conversation that I've had with the mayor of Holly is that, you know, that there may be a vacancy for that next step, as Commissioner Gross was talking about,
Yeah.
housing in Moorhead, but not in the smaller communities in the county. And so, yes, they may be ready to move to that next step, which is not a nursing home, but it's a downsize.
Right.
But are not willing to give up rural Clay County to go to Moorhead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
ladies.
Thank you for your comments too.
Thank you.
All right.
Matt, come on up. Good morning.
Morning. So at the July 16th Planning Commission meeting, there was a public hearing for a petition to rezone, it's about a section and a half of the Spring Prairie Hutterite Colony land from RP Ag, which is our Resource Protection Aggregate, to Agricultural Service Center. So the intent of that petition by the applicant was basically because there's a lot of development going on in these parcels, and none of it's really related to aggregate extraction. A lot of that development has preceded the aggregate, the RP aggregate overlay on that land. There's also a lot of, well, in the past probably 5 to 10 years, there's been a lot of diversification of the use of the land in terms of business and other activities that don't conform to our land development code. And so the question kind of, or the topic of discussion for the Planning Commission was how to best get those uses into compliance now and in the future, and what development, kind of a broader, I guess, discussion was what the development might look like in that area in the future. So there's a lot of really good discussion amongst folks in the neighborhood, who live in the area, the Hutterite Colony, and the Planning Commission. And ultimately, the Planning Commission would move to recommend to this board to deny the petition to rezone to Agricultural Service Center, but approve the removal of the Resource Protection Aggregate overlay, which would leave those parcels in the Agricultural General Zoning District. And so I've just included with this all the materials that the Planning Commission reviewed as well, some maps to give you kind of a sense of where this is located, as well as the colony did provide some really good information in terms of, because they have so much activity and so much going on. They did provide some maps. These are land use maps, so you can see all the current land uses as well. And then there were also written comments and verbal testimony given by folks who live in the area as well.
And I think it should be noted that there are, at the back of the packet, substantial comments from neighbors based on concerns that they have. And the underlying piece was that the colony members are great neighbors. And so there was nothing against the growth, they understand it. The underlying piece really came down to the road. And both our highway engineer was at that meeting, heard those concerns, and I think going forward, the Hutterite Colony was very open to seeing how they could help facilitate, one, any upgrades to the road going forward, or making sure that all the community's concerns are taken into account. And I think that may be evidence as to how there are no neighbors here right now.
Yep.
I've not fielded any comments. I will say at the end of that meeting, I felt like they had reached an agreement going forward. You were at that meeting as well.
That's correct. The Hutterite representatives shared that they would look potentially for future growth to maintain the positive relationships, maybe a little bit more to the west.
Yeah, and that's an important point. So if you look at the very first map here, so these are the two parcels that were in question for the petition for rezoning. And if you look at the parcel 270130200, the main concern from a lot of the residents in the area was development on the southern half of that parcel, just because that would put them into close proximity with a lot of that commercial activity. And their thought was, just if you go to the north and follow the northern edge of these two parcels west, basically from that point all the way out to Highway 9, the Hutterites own all of that land, and it's in ag land right now, and there are no neighbors. There could be an opportunity for a corridor for development, which would provide them access to Highway 9, and as mentioned at the meeting by Dave Overbo, the highway engineer, he had stated that they would prefer for any commercial truck traffic to go west to Highway 9 and then south down to US Highway 10, where there is actual a signaled intersection, as opposed to what currently happens where a lot of that traffic goes down County Road 86 to 10. And it's not a controlled intersection.
The one comment I had, not comment, but when I look at this, I mean, they're applying for a permit to do this. You drive by out there, it's already done.
Yes.
You know, and it's almost like saying, well, we'll build it and ask for forgiveness later, and or instead of applying. Now, probably he did go for the permit, I don't know. At the one meeting that you and I were at Spring Prairie, it sort of sounded like he was under the understanding he didn't need a permit, or I don't know. It's just like they went ahead with the project without getting a permit.
Yep.
You know, and now to say, no, it's not granted, I mean, there's a lot of work done there already.
Yeah, and that's kind of the purpose of this, is to work with them to get them kind of into compliance. This would be one of the first steps. So we would have to look at all of their, and I have started looking at all of their buildings that are unpermitted, that they've just constructed. And in terms of enforcement, what can be done is an after the fact building permit, which would be a 3 times the value of a regular building permit. So it'd be a fine. And then there are other options that we can do as well. I think a lot of their current uses out there need to be permitted for either an interim use or a conditional use permit. So conditions can actually be placed on these uses that make them more, I guess, amenable to the surrounding area. and to address some of the residents' concerns as well, the nearby resident concerns as well. And removing that RP aggregate overlay is kind of the first step in that process. And so, in our ordinance, you know, it does state that we do not need a public hearing to approve this, though you as a body can hold as many public hearings as you deem necessary before making your decision. So if that's something that you choose to do, we can definitely do that. Otherwise, I guess the other option would be to make a decision to approve the planning commission's recommendation. But if you feel a public hearing for the commission is necessary, that's something that can be done as well.
Okay, what are the board's wishes?
My question, was this relayed to the neighbors that this was on the agenda today?
No, it was not, just because public hearing, in our ordinance, it states it's not necessary. It's kind of up to you to decide. Yep.
Well, being the one that was at the planning commission, it was stated to the members in the audience that this would be on the planning or the Board of Commissioners agenda within the month. So it was expressed to them that an action would be taken, and you know, I really feel that I echo the concerns that Commissioner Gross have in terms of after the fact pieces, but I think that we're making good strides in working with a member of the public that really is a good, they have an employee base out there. They've developed quite a base, and I think that they really want to work with us and work with neighbors as much as possible. So I think that's positive.
Well,
Somebody want to make a motion then?
Well, I'll make the motion to let them go ahead with it. I don't know, whatever that motion is, I mean, to approve the permit, I mean, what are they, right now, we're just taking.
Approve the recommendation of the planning commission.
Yep, to deny the petition to rezone from RP Ag to ASC, but approve the removal of the RP Ag overlay.
Was that gonna take away from doing their fueling operation there then?
No, but they will have to apply for an after-the-fact building permit. So that would be the 3 times the building permit application fee plus 3 times, it's $1 per every $1,000 value of that project.
So is that your motion? The recommendation?
What I can do too is work with the county attorney to draft a resolution.
Well, my motion is to remove that overlay. I wanna let this project go on.
Okay.
Whatever that motion has to be, you know, whichever way it has to be worded.
So it would be to follow the recommendation of the planning commission.
Yeah.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries. There you go.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, let's get our committee reports out quick before we have to beat up on Steve a little bit here.
For the fur flies.
So, go ahead, Jenny.
Hi, thank you. Last
And I emphasize the word quick. So.
2 weeks ago, I attended the EDC annual meeting. Important things going there, but I echo the sentiment this board has said is we just would appreciate as much collaboration with the ED's economic developments on this side of the river as well. I attended the Buffalo Red River Watershed meeting for their One Watershed, One Plan meeting. They have a pretty good timeline going forward. Basic information, nothing really new happened at that meeting. It's kind of the same. The notes in that as well. And then I attended the Extension Committee was in the process of interviewing for their new program coordinator because their coordinator is stepping down at the end of the month, and so I attended that. And I just need to say that the individual that came for Citizens to be Heard today in the last month has been here, has threatened me on the phone, which is fine, I don't have a problem with that, but my concern is that he's been in the office trying to get all of our social security numbers to put liens on our personal properties, and at the end of his statement today, I view that as a threat to throw or take into his personal hands to get us out of office. And I have no problem with people that have differing opinions of what my actions may or may not be. I draw the line at when people threaten to take us out of office. However that may come off to other people, I feel that's a threat, specifically from someone who has had a history of being escorted out of different public meetings, that has had restraining orders against different elected officials, and so I'm not sure what the action going forward be, but personally I'm quite offended at his actions, and so I'm not sure if the rest of the board feels that way, but that's where I'm at.
Well, we can probably have the county attorney's office work with you, Steve, and see what we can do with this guy, so. Kevin?
Okay, on the 23rd, I also attended the Greater Fargo-Moorhead Economic Development Annual Meeting. Then on the 24th, we had the Prairie Lakes Solid Waste Meeting in Perham. Nothing really new to report there. Everything is going well. They did have to have a shutdown for a little bit. That afternoon, I came back for the Divergent Public Outreach Meeting. And we got some information on the North Dakota Water Topics Overview Committee meeting. We're doing a presentation there. And then that Thursday, we had in the morning, we had a solid waste meeting. And again, Steve Moore gave a report on the Moorhead Commercial Single Sort pilot project that was done, and as it turns out, unfortunately, the cost to benefit ratio just did not work out to continue that program. I think Steve is doing a great job, and I think they're trying to focus. They think they can do more in terms of recycling by working more with apartment buildings, focusing on improving those, and I think that would probably go a long way. And I think there's a lot of commercial businesses that are doing the recycling on their own too. So, and that has been ongoing. So then that afternoon we had on the 25th we had a diversion authority meeting, and Colonel Jansen, the new colonel for the area, St. Paul District, was there. We got to meet him, and he certainly talked about how he sees the need for this project in this region. On Monday the 29th, we had a diversion chair meeting, and that kind of went over, we talked about next steps with litigation issues, and talked about more about property mitigation things, and I'll leave it at that. Then that's all I had until yesterday. We had another Diversion Authority Chairs Coordinating meeting, and we continue to talk about, at that point now, there's been a selection on the executive director. So there's, we talked about what the next steps are there in the negotiation process, and there's going to be a diversion authority meeting on Thursday where I think there's going to get closer to, hopefully we're going to be able to get closer to an agreement on that. And then once that's done, it'll be determined as to when, if the negotiation is good, when Joel Paulson would start. And then on let's see, yes, then also yesterday we had the jail and LEC and juvenile detention center project, construction projects. Really nothing new to report on the LEC or the correctional facility, other than the fact that the LEC continues to have a few leaks in the roof, I think it is, or was that the jail? No, it was the jail. Yeah, it was a correctional facility, and they're working on that through the warranty process. And, you know, and then the last thing on the juvenile center, you know, we always talk about the contingencies, and part of what we said and worked on was that, you know, before we go to any other contingencies, we would use up both the contractor and the owner contingencies. The contractor contingency has only got like $20,000 left, and they have said that they might have to request some credit back to them that they gave us early on, in terms of, there were things in the owner contingency that the contractor agreed to put under theirs as long as we didn't go over budget. And, you know, so some of these things, and if it gets to that, we'll get more in-depth to give you the real details behind it. But without question, there's going to be, overall, there's going to be, the contingency isn't going to be what we had anticipated for that project. The funds, however, are there, but the contingency, unlike the LEC and the law enforcement center. So that concludes my report.
Okay, Frank. A couple of weeks ago, we did do extension interviews. We did that on July 23rd and July 31st. We had interviews with a 4-H coordinator. I'm sure I don't know if they selected anybody yet or not, but I know we've got some good candidates there. I attended a couple of retirements. Delane Vogel retired, had a retirement thing there, and Lee Brodry retired, and attended those retirement gatherings for that. Met a couple of times with Mike Astrip already, the latest, he's working on this transfer station, and I think I'm gonna request a meeting, that we have another meeting. I realize everything seems pretty much set to go already, but I think we need to discuss it a little bit more, because yesterday he had all 2 representatives out there and the senator, along with me and Mayor Dilworth and stuff like that. We had a meeting out there, and I think we need to discuss that a little bit more, because I think he's wants some answers on it and stuff like that. And I realize we've approved everything already and it's set down, but I think we need one more meeting there. We had a meeting with the Criminal Justice Committee again. Jim and I were there, and I think it's a good meeting that these guys get together, probation and the judges and stuff like that, they get together. I think they need to coordinate together, you know. I don't know what our purpose is there yet, right? Yeah, right now, I don't think we can help them out that much. I think they have to coordinate with one. When the judge says this, they have to coordinate that, you know. I don't know what our involvement's gonna be there. I don't think we have the knowledge and stuff to tell them, no, you should send this form here, send this form there. Figure it out, you know, and I think that's what needs to be done there. Yesterday morning, we met with Clyde McCarthy on the building committee, and you know, there's several things that were brought up there, you know, so the question comes to be, do we take tenants out of the family service center? We lose revenue if we do that, but we get the space that we need, you know. Should we go that way? Should we build a place with detoxification? Should we build a building there, you know? Do we go that way, you know? Do we need to build a new courtroom building, you know? There's several different options there. Administrative building, probably should we move everybody out of here and build an administrative building? Should it be on campus, off campus, or whatever? But they're gonna be looking into a lot of, we talked about quite a few different things there yesterday, and they have to make, I mean, we're gonna go by some of their advice and look at what they come up with. Okay, that's it.
Kim? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On Wednesday, the 24th, I attended the Flood Diversion Finance Committee meeting, and the main gist of that meeting was that the property acquisitions continue apace on the diversion channel area. On Tuesday, the 30th of July, I also attended, along with Commissioner Gross, the Criminal Justice Advisory meeting. And I have pretty much the same question that Commissioner Gross just brought up just a moment ago. And then yesterday, along with Commissioner Gross again, on the Building Committee, we attended the Campus Master Planning Kickoff meeting with Scott Fettig from Klein McCarthy, the architect that has been commissioned to conduct this study. And that's my report.
Thank you. I had the EDC annual meeting and the jail construction yesterday and the solid waste meetings, and they've been reported on. We did have a meeting this morning with James from the detention center, and we'll have some good news coming from him, I think, later this month. And well, we did have a Heartland Trail meeting in Hawley earlier, and as I say, that makes the diversion project look pretty simple, I think, and that continues to be the case. We're going to be going after some bonding money next year to both Becker County and Clay County to see if we can move that project forward, but we'll see. That's like everything else, we need some money, and if we get some, we'll be able to move forward, and if not, we'll just have to wait, so.
Yeah, I guess I was at that meeting also, and it really, when we discussed how much it costs per mile to put in a bicycle trail, not that I'm against bicycle trail, but when you look at the amount of money you're gonna spend on a bicycle trail, and then if you look at a road, you know, they're almost the same, $1 million a mile, you know, and it's just,
That's a lot of money.
Where do you put your money?
Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the 23rd, I met with Peter Lindstrom from the University of Minnesota Regional Sustainable Development Partnership. We met with Dan Molly, Assistant County City Manager, Derek LaPointe from the Downtown Moorhead Economic Development. They presented, Mr. Lindstrom presented to the PACE program. Apparently, Mr. Lindstrom said he has been here before this board back in 2016. The PACE program basically offers property owners the opportunity to make energy-related improvements to their buildings through a low-cost, long-term financing up to 20 years. And so there's, at the time when they presented to you, the PACE program was just presented as an idea. There's currently an organization in town that is looking to utilize that. And so in order for that to happen, we would need to have a joint powers agreement with the state that would allow assessment to be presented on an annual basis up to 20 years for these organizations. And so it's all right with the board. I'll look to bring Mr. Lindstrom back in the coming weeks to present to this board again. I've also attended the Greater Fargo-Moorhead Economic Annual Board meeting. On the 24th, we met with the River Project, on the River Project with Rhonda, James O'Donnell, Lakeland representatives. I think one of the things that we talked about when that program first was implemented in the corrections facility would be, is there a way that we could coordinate those positions also at the juvenile center? It was a pretty overwhelming response from the corrections facility that it's being highly utilized. They're seeing many positive outcomes, and the need's already so great based on the services that they're providing that they're already tracking additional opportunities that are currently being missed. And so they didn't feel like at this point that those positions could be shared with the juvenile center.
Steve, could you follow up? I read in the paper that there are still mental health pieces that were missing, and so they're having to ship people to different facilities in the jail because of that. Could you just follow up with me into what that may be?
Sure. Last week we've been continuing on with several budget discussions. We participated in the solid waste advisory that's been addressed by the commissioners. I did have a meeting with the sheriff. He's going to be coming before you here in the coming weeks. He's been notified that there'll be another squad increase in 2020, and so like he did last year, looking to pre-purchase the vehicles for next year, paying for them next year with the internal service, but purchasing them now. I participated in the Diversion Authority full board meeting that Commissioner Campbell and Whalen have addressed. On 26th, I attended a regional county administrator meeting. We focused a lot of our discussion on workforce and staffing concerns, and also insurance rates and increases. Participated yesterday on the campus master planning meeting. One thing I would note is that based on some of the discussion in emails and survey results, Scott Fettig from Clyde McCarthy indicated that he would be he would be willing to include motor vehicle in the current contract under the same cost. And so he actually did run out there yesterday. I ran that request past Commissioner Gross and Haney, and so he ran out there yesterday, and we'll have some input on some possible efficiencies there. Participated in the owners' meetings that have been covered, and the meeting with this morning with James O'Donnell. Just a couple placeholders. We have September 5th has tentatively been scheduled for the Northwest Minnesota Legislative Tours. We're looking at the 11th Street Railroad projects, touring MSU. We'll be talking about a transfer station again, and then they'll also be doing a tour up to Thief River Falls and looking at different flood issues. And so as I get a more permanent or permanent itinerary, I'll pass that along to you all. And again, just of note, we did receive our certified county program aid for 2020. We did, as Governor Walz had promised in his campaign, we did see a significant increase this year of roughly $484,000 in relation to last year's amount. And we also did receive our dividend notification from MCIT of $162,256, and we can expect that check in mid-November. That concludes my report.
Thanks. Tony, anything?
I don't know if it's any update or anything, but we have a new employee starting at the end of the month, current law clerk down in Hennepin County doing child protection work down there. Comes highly regarded, his judge spoke really high of him. I think he starts August 26th, Charlie, so.
Good.
And then we got Brian coming back too, so hopefully things are gonna.
Yeah, good deal.
We can start dealing with the other legal matters that we discussed previously, so.
Good. Okay, do I have a motion to go into closed session?
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Back on.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I would just like to comment that we're in closed session for the purpose of the annual review of our county administrator. And now that we're in open session, you know, I would like to just point out that I think his review showed that he's doing an excellent job. His performance has been outstanding in his first year. He's really developed. He himself talked about where his improvements, could be, and I'm thankful that we have him as our administrator, and I felt he got a glowing review. So.
Yeah. Good comments. I think everybody concurs with that. So, anything else for the board today?
Move to adjourn.
We're adjourned.